Hey guys, Chelsea here. Now, I'm just gonna say it. Enlisted has a shitload of problems, okay? And that's evidence. Literally, if you played the game for 10 minutes, you'll know that it's got some problems. But maybe not 10 minutes, maybe a week or two, you'll probably start to see the underlying problems of Enlisted. And I've cemented them down into three categories. Well, it's three. The first one is progression, and mostly how slow it is. Like, for me, just look at this, right? For me, getting to the Panzer Shrek and the M9 isn't too difficult because I was already max level. But what about people who have just started out the game, right? Or they were mid-level when it came out? They're never going to get these. It's going to take too long for them to get these. Especially if they're getting 20 kills a game, 20, 30 kills a game, it'll take such a long, torturous grind in order to get even close to the objectives that, to get to. Now, I know, the grind is probably one of the worst parts about the game, and it has been addressed. The only good thing that I think Stalingrad ever did was that it kind of brought in, the devs actually admitted that there was a grind problem. And the best way to say it is just looking at the troll. If you look at this, 4 times XP, right? 4 times XP. If they knew that this would be a big sell point for buying Stalingrad. And honestly, while it did kill the campaign quite quickly, because most players would level up like 9 times, they would level up to level 26 in I don't know, 20 matches or something like that, 20 or so matches. So they would get, they would get their XP almost immediately. But, it meant that they would get all of the weapons and stuff really quickly. But, of course, he did lock the whole shit behind the paywall. Now, the way I would fix this, because, let's face it, nothing, everything is, requires fixing. Nothing is bad, just making suggestions means nothing if you don't give suggestions to fix it. The best way I could say is, not just upping the XP cost, maybe even lowering the XP requirements, especially in the later levels. I think it takes 10, I don't know, I think it's 5 million XP to get to max level for Normandy and for Moscow, right? Now, someone like me, I've already done this on both sides, really, so for me, this isn't too difficult, but for an average player, someone who's just joined the game, getting the Tiger, getting even getting stuff like the Jumbo and the Panzer IV-H is a huge task for them. Especially if they don't invest in the game. They don't buy premiums, they don't buy 80s, they don't buy levels, they don't buy premium squads to increase levels. They don't maximise boosters. Stuff like that. Or they don't know how to get XP quick. So I think just a flat reduction, and they have proven that they are trying to reduce this. So, yeah. The second one is explosion spam. Now, explosion spam happens in all campaigns, but it is very prominent in both Normandy and Stalingrad mostly. It does happen in Moscow, it does happen in Tunisia, it does happen in Berlin. I'm not denying that. But it is primarily Normandy and Stalingrad, which are ground zero for explosive hell. For different reasons, obviously. Stalingrad has a shitload of explosive options. It also has the noob option of just calling in literally a nuclear bomb, probably just sending in 5 bombers across the map. So it has that. Normandy has a lot more terrifying stuff from the air threats, such as the Junker 188, the BF-110, the P38 and the P47. But the problem with it as well is it's also got this is across all campaigns, explosive packs and rifle grenades. They are too powerful for the game. Explosive packs, especially, and apparently I think recently they've been reduced. I'm not getting as many multi-kills of these things. They're still pretty powerful if you use them correctly. But rifle grenades are just awful. Are still awful to go up against. Especially the semi-autos in for the allies, especially the M1 carbine and the M1 Garand at the moment. Like, these things are literally at the moment are 3 kill guns. All of them are essentially 3 kill guns against the infantry. I've seen people snipe, like, get like 30 kills. It got to the point where I would see if people would literally just. I'm just gonna show you what they would do. I can't really show it off because I don't have many AT rifles. But what they would do is they would just have 9-man squads full of riflemen. Full of riflemen, nothing else. No engineers, no bombers, no gunners, no radio operators, nothing, no assaulters. Just 9 guys. And they would just have a rifle grenade, and that was it. And then maybe another one, or maybe they would replace it with a backpack and have 3 explosive packs. This just turned into hell. Now, they have done something. They have tried to revert the rifle grenades back to what they were. And they did reduce the perk. There was a perk here which was bugged. It was the throwing range perk. This thing was like 400% or something. It's now 50, thank fuck. It's now been reverted back to 50. But this thing, you would literally throw that thing and you would literally it would not stop. Whereas something like, and it made it a very good perk. Like, especially if you couldn't get rifle reload speed and reduced vertical recoil, you just get reduced vertical recoil and the throwing and the further range perk. Because they would decimate anything near them, and it was just awful to go up against. And it just, it was one of the worst things to go up against. I would say the problem is that, well, it's like they needed to revert the changes. Like, keep a couple of the changes, but revert some of the explosives, like damage wise. Because rifle grenades went from being something that only a few players would tactically use, such as myself, would tactically use in the correct situation. So they were a weapon that you'd have to use tactically. They went from that to just being utter just awful, like just being just the bane of every player's existence. And the real only change for the explosives is, honestly, I hate to say it, it's a blanket nerf on the explosives. And some of this has already been done, but and the thing is as well, like the I've suggested with planes having them be a little bit more like to reduce the plane cycling. You should be able to have you should be able to use planes again if you. So let's say you do a bombing run, you should be able to use planes for enough. Like, you shouldn't just go like plane. You should go plane, and then it forces you to use something else. So like you go so it goes plane. You have to use an infantry squad. Obviously, I know this is pretty bad because people would just suicide spam their way out of it, and I know people would do that, but it would be a stopper to the problem. Or maybe you can make a system in place so it limits people doing this kind of thing. But the third one, and this is one I covered in my last video actually, grey zone camping. Oh, the worst. It's one of the worst things in this game. What people do is they will use tanks, predominantly jumbos, predominantly Panthers and Tigers, T50s, T34s, anything powerful. I've seen people do this with SU-85s as well. I've seen people do this with Panzer IIIs, Grants. You name the tank, I've seen people do this. And essentially what they'll do is they'll sit in the back, just killing the other team, right? From an unkillable position. They'll do nothing to support their team, and it's just frustrating to go up against. There's other grey zone campaigns, like people will build flat guns in the grey zone. They will build, they'll just go snipers. They'll build MG nests, AT guns, stuff like that. And they'll just use grey zone camp for the whole match. Barely getting any kills, and probably then complaining, oh, X faction suffers on the fucking forums, even though they've literally just been playing just in the most, I wouldn't even say awesome, it's literally it's the worst tactic you could play, and it gives you the least amount of XP. Now, the problem is that they've actually done there was a stealth change in Burning Skies, which actually reduced the amount of time that people had in the grey zone. So basically, if another player was going into the grey zone to, maybe flush out one of these grey zone campers, they would have a lot less time than they did pre-Burning Skies. Like, pre-Burning Skies, it was quite generous. You had about 20 seconds before you started taking damage. Now, you go in the grey zone, you put your pinky in the grey zone, you have to get the fuck out of there now, otherwise, you're dead. And that is actually quite appalling, because it's, people, the only reason people would do this wasn't to spawn camp, because spawn protection exists. It was always to flush people out who were sniping, who were, building AT guns, who were just, and they didn't have access to a plane, maybe because someone was hoarding the bomber plane, or maybe they didn't have one equipped, or maybe they just don't have access to bombs in their planes. Like, I run planes which don't have access to bombs, like the, for example, the BF-110. So people were like that. But it was such a harsh change. It's like, why would you do this? Why would you change this? Because, it was a good system already. People would grey zone camp, but the thing was, most players could counter it. Now, grey zone camping's uncounterable. The way they need to change this is by reverting the grey zone change. They need to revert it back to what it used to be, and yeah. And honestly, grey zone camping, it would still continue. God, it would still continue, but it would, and people again, it wouldn't be as, and it would still be hated. God, I mean, I still complain about grey zone camping. Check my last video on it, but yeah. Anyways, I think that's about it, really. There's a lot more other changes, a lot more other stuff that need, but those are the big three problems with Enlisted. These are the problems that Darkflow need to address now, basically. Otherwise, they could pretty much be on the receiving end of a mass exodus from the community. Anyways, I'm going to end the video here. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.